All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a technology that could literally change everything. I'm talking about medicine, how we heal, maybe even what it means to be human. And it all starts with something as simple as light.
So let's start with a really big question. What if a flash of light could rewrite your biology? Now I know that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's not. It's the core idea driving two revolutionary fields that are coming together, and they're creating a future where we can actually talk to ourselves using the language of energy.
So yeah, we're talking about programming life with light. This whole new frontier is called vibrational biotechnologies. I know, it sounds super complicated, but the main idea is actually pretty straightforward. See, our bodies, they're basically electric, rhythmic systems. So the question becomes, what if we could tap into that? What if we could use that natural response to energy to, guide how our bodies work?
And that's really what this is all about. It's like learning a new language. Scientists are figuring out how to take things like light, sound, even electromagnetic fields, and turn them into biological instructions. It's a whole new kind of code, one that could let us bypass traditional drugs and chemicals altogether.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? Well, that brings us to our first big idea. It's a framework developed by a Dr. Joseph Peter Delaney, and it's called chromato-opto-genetics. You can think of it as the first real tool that lets us speak this new biological language. So what is it exactly? Well, imagine your body has these set points for being healthy. But sometimes, chronic illness or a bad injury can get it stuck in a bad loop, kind of like a computer that keeps crashing. Chromato-opto-genetics is basically a way to hit the reset button on the whole system. It uses these super precise vibrational inputs to just nudge your body out of that bad loop and get it back on the path to healing and regeneration.
And the model breaks this down into 4 really clear layers. It all starts when light, the photon interaction, hits these little sensors in our cells. That kicks off step 2, a metabolic shift. Suddenly cellular energy and blood flow start to change. Then, that leads to step 3, where the whole environment around the cells gets altered. And finally, and this is the really big one, if you keep up these inputs, you get to step 4, epigenetic changes. We're talking about altering how your genes are expressed in the long run, setting brand new, healthier set points for your body. It's a full cascade.
Okay, so if that first technology is like a reset button for the body, the next thing we're going to talk about is more like a save as command. We're shifting gears to look at DARPA's generative optogenetics program. And trust me, this takes the whole idea to a completely different level. And this slide really shows you just how big of a leap we're talking about. See, classic optogenetics, it uses light as a switch. You can turn existing cell functions on or off. But generative optogenetics, it wants to use light as a pen. We're not just flipping switches anymore. We're talking about writing brand new DNA or RNA instructions directly inside a living cell. We're moving from just tweaking what's there to actually creating new genetic programs from scratch.
So how is this even possible? The key is this proposed little molecular machine called a nucleic acid compiler, or Knack for short. The idea is you shine a specific pattern of light on it, and these Knacks get activated. They then go to work inside the cell, grabbing the building blocks of DNA and RNA that are just floating around, and they assemble them into a totally new genetic sequence, right there on the spot. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
So let's take a step back. We've got one tech to reset the body's entire system, and another one to literally write new code for it. The potential for good here, the therapeutic promise, is just massive. But as you can probably guess, with this kind of power comes a huge, huge problem. The dual-use dilemma. And Dr. Delaney puts it perfectly in the paper. He says these developments create a powerful interface between information and biology. And just like any powerful tool, it can be used for amazing things or for really terrible things. I mean, the same technology that could one day regenerate a damaged organ could, in the wrong hands, be used for purposes we don't even want to think about.
And that brings up some immediate, really tough questions. For starters, who controls the light? If our biology can be influenced or even reprogrammed by external fields, who's in charge of those fields? How can we even talk about informed consent when our bodies might be getting signals we can't even see or feel? It's a massive challenge to our idea of personal autonomy.
And then there's this. What happens if we decide to optimize everyone? I mean, having the power to make everyone healthier sounds great on the surface, but it carries this huge risk of pushing us all toward one single, standardized biological ideal. Not only could that make us as a species less resilient, it could end up just hard-coding our current social biases and inequalities directly into our DNA.
And finally, let's talk about the most direct risk of all. What if there's a typo in the code? Remember, this generative optogenetics, it's writing new genetic code from scratch without a template. So what happens if there's a tiny mistake? A single typo in those instructions could have massive unintended consequences. And because this could be delivered by something as widespread as light, an error could potentially spread incredibly fast, maybe before anyone even realizes there's a problem.
So look, these aren't just some vague, futuristic worries. The paper groups them into 4 really clear risk clusters. You've got control and autonomy, the risk of someone secretly manipulating our biology. You've got narrowing diversity, the danger of making us all the same. Then there's the technical side, error in cascades, what happens when the code goes wrong. And finally, inequity and coercion, the very real possibility that this could create a new kind of biological divide between the haves and the have-nots, or even be used in military conflicts.
Which brings us to really the most important question of all. How do we move forward? We've seen the incredible promise, but we've also seen the very real dangers. So, what do we do? How do we get the good parts of this technology without falling into all the traps?
Well, the paper argues that the technology itself isn't inherently good or evil. It's just a tool. Its future isn't baked into the science. It all depends on the choices we make right now about how to handle it. The final outcome really hinges on the rules, the ethics, and the safety measures we build around this science, and we have to start building them today.
So the author proposes what they call a governance-first approach, and it's basically built on 3 key ideas. First, we have to prioritize long-term safety and study the ecological impacts, no rushing ahead. Second, ethics and biosecurity can't be an afterthought. They have to be embedded into the research right from the very beginning. And third, we need to build governance structures that are inclusive, that bring everyone to the table, ethicists, legal experts, communities from all over the world.
And that's really where this leaves us. This technology is coming. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. That interface between information and our own biology, it's being built as we speak. The power to program life with light is right there on the horizon. So the final question for all of us is a simple one. Are we ready?